So on my Facebook timeline, I saw two statements that I found very, very interesting and sent my mind into a whole nother space of thought that I had earlier this morning for the video that I was originally going to shoot. The only reason I didn't comment, and I'm doing a video instead, is nothing against the person themselves, nothing against anybody. This is the reason why I don't comment on most things I see on Facebook. I have this thing about notifications. Like, I don't like group text because every time it keeps going off, and I have this impulse that I need to check it. Every time I see notifications, I have this impulse that I need to check it. And because of that, I wind up spending too much time on something that doesn't need nor require or should get that much of my time. And then other things don't get done. So if you put out something on Facebook, if you are in my timeline and I don't respond to something, that's pretty much why. Now, if you say something on the Uncle Renz Popcorn page, you say something on my Coach Renz page, then I know that's specifically towards me, so I'm going to respond to that. But if you make a great comment or you say something and I don't, it's simply because I don't like all the notifications. And on the ones I do comment on, I am very, very quick to hit turn off notifications. So, but then others require much more detailed, and just taking the time to type all that out is just not something that I'm willing to do. So I want to talk about what I saw on this person's timeline. And before I introduce myself to those who are finding me for the first time, I do want to make sure I get out there two things. Well, a couple of things. One, I like this guy. I like this guy. Even though we have a difference of opinion, I like this guy, which is why when I post up his comments on here, I won't put his name up there, because I genuinely like the guy. When we used to play flag football together, I enjoyed his company. He's an amazing artist. He's an amazing artist, Afrocentric. He really cares about people. So he's a great guy. You know, we just have a difference of opinion, and he's very passionate. I love the fact, even though we have a difference of opinion, he's very passionate about his opinion. I think some of his comments are a little ill-placed or misplaced, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But I genuinely like the guy. I've been watching his career, and I mean, I can definitely see adding some of his artwork to my collection. So, because like these walls need something on it. But so I respect the guy. So the other thing I want to say is I do truly respect this gentleman. So no hard feelings towards him, no ill feelings towards him whatsoever. So if you're finding me for the first time, I want to thank you and I want to welcome you. I'm Coach Renz. I love teaching people about developing their own spirituality through their own thought, being independent of thinking, and breaking away from the traditions that they grew up in and were conditioned into, and coming to their own self. I also love teaching about finances and how to build your credit. That's why we have the Financial Alchemy program, and coaching people in building business and building wealth. I do care about people, and I believe that we all should have an equal opportunity to prove how unequal we are. So I enjoy that, and yes, I know that comes from, for anybody who want to put in the comments that, oh, you're a communist socialist. Even communism that we have seen today doesn't fit what they actually wrote about, Marx and Engels. So anyway, yeah, so I appreciate you guys. Anybody who's a patron, I really appreciate you. I just figured out how to do my live broadcast on Patreon, so my live broadcast will be on Patreon as well. And as we develop more people into Patreon, we'll start doing more private things just for Patreon as well, for the patrons. Matter of fact, we're just going to start doing more private things for patrons, because I appreciate the ones who are already there. I don't want to make you guys wait for somebody else to join in as if you're not as important as they are. Please join me on my live blog talk radio as The Alchemy of Life, as well as on YouTube and Facebook, that we have every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. This week, this upcoming week, next Tuesday, we're going to have Mystic Mama. She is the womb goddess. So I look forward to her being on the show. We're going to talk about womb health. We're going to talk about, different pathologies that women have to deal with in their womb and their vagina, and how that is actually passed on to men. So guys, you want to be a part of it. You want to understand these things. The better we understand, the more help we can be, and the better we can be towards ourselves. So join me Tuesday, 9 p.m., January 8th. If you're watching this video months, years later, then go back and find that video. I'll have it posted on this video, maybe. Depends. But I have it posted on here on other videos where you guys can get attached to it. So we're going to talk about health, womb health with Mystic Mama. So in today's conversation, and so this gentleman, he posted a couple of things, and I think the two things kind of work hand in hand with one another. So that's why I saw them and I was like, oh wow, that's interesting right there. And it's an interesting thought process. So what he said was, if I invented, and put it up here, if I invented a way to prolong life, eliminate debt, cure cancer, and travel space, would that make me a god to some? And here's the thing about that statement. It's valid and invalid. It's valid. It only becomes valid when, and what makes it invalid is the fact that he put eliminate debt on there. Because we know that in today's society, in our technologically advanced society today, that if a person traveled space, if a person cured cancer, if a person prolonged life, we wouldn't call them a god. Because why? Whether you believe in flat earth or not, whether regardless of what you believe when it comes to those kinds of things, let's be realistic. Let's look at, we have the ability of flight. Let's just look at flight. Let's look at between the ground and the atmosphere, the dome for the flat earthers. That is still space. We have the ability of flight. So the idea of traveling space would not be amazing to our civilization today. We understand microbiology. We understand cells, mitosis. We understand, all these different things, the different components of the cell. We don't know everything, but we know enough about microbiology, viruses and bacteria that, and sickness and disease, that if you cured cancer, you would not be considered a god. Which curing cancer would prolong life, but even if you did not have a disease and you were able to figure out a way. So the reason why we decay and die is because your cells have, they reproduce themselves. So your body regenerates every like 3 to 7 years, depending upon certain parts of the body. But as a whole, I believe it's 7 years. I'm not exactly 100% sure on that. Let me know in the comments. But your body regenerates itself. Now, in doing so, the reason why it's able to do that, it has what's called telomeres on them. As your cells reproduce themselves, the telomeres shrink and gets less and less telomeres. Now, the amazing thing about cancer cells is that cancer cells they duplicate themselves. So I shouldn't say regenerate. They duplicate themselves, but they never lose their telomeres, which is what allows them to keep going. So if every cell in our body, from our skin cells, hair cells, to the most inner cells of our organs, our blood, and that sort of thing, was able to maintain its telomeres, or even permanently or for a longer period than normal, then we would live longer. You would prolong life because the body would regenerate. The body would continuously heal. Your pancreas wouldn't begin to fail because it got old. It just got older, and the cells that make up the telomeres don't, duplicate themselves anymore. So you would be able to prolong life if you can figure out how to take what happens in cancer cells as far as telomeres, and implement that into all the cells of the body. I was with some people who were at a biomechanical conference about a couple of months ago, and when I brought that to the table, that hey, I would love to see you guys working on how to increase telomeres. Me not being a microbiologist, one guy was a little smart as like, hey, I didn't expect some guy to just say telomeres. Who says that? But the fact of the matter is that's just what it is. So if you were able to do that, it would be an amazing discovery. It would have been an amazing procedure, but it would not make you a god. The fact that he put eliminate debt is the problem, because eliminating debt is not hard. It's, cause and effect. You spend more money than you make, you create debt. If you stop spending more money than you make and start paying off the debt you created, you're good. Or if you went to a country, you changed the governmental system where people weren't allowed to have debt. Debt wasn't a thing that, credit wasn't a thing like it used to be back in the day. It was a minimal thing. Then, of course, you've eliminated debt, or pay off the world's debt, pay off your country's debt or whatever. That wouldn't make you a God. It'd make you kind of a government or just a person who understands, the cause and effects of economics. So eliminating debt brought it to our time frame. And that's where I had the issue with this comment about it making you God. Now let's look at these without eliminating debt. If you had a way to prolong life, cure cancer, or travel space, would that make you a God to some? Well, according to the Abrahamic religions, God came from the heavens, the sky, descended from the heavens, the sky, with fire and smoke on the mountain, and the mountain shook. Now, this same God was able to give life, prolong life of people back in the day, to heal people of different diseases that they didn't have any knowledge of. So if you took these same things and placed them in the time frame that the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, back in the time frame that these books were supposedly not just written, but were occurring. If you traveled from space, came to Earth on a rocket ship, as we have seen depictions of this in ancient writings on the wall, you descended from the heavens. If you came from another planet, you're going to descend from the heavens, the sky. And if you use fossil fuel types of movement, or even anything that creates fire and smoke that uses propulsion, the igniting of some fluid, some liquid, some fuel, then you're going to bellow out fire and smoke. And the amount of noise is going to cause the ground to vibrate because of just the law of vibration. So if you came into it with these physical things of propulsion from space, you're going to appear to be so far in advance. You're talking about coming to a civilization that can't fly, that doesn't have the ability of flight. So yes, you may be considered a God. You come in, if you've gotten to that level of technologically advancement, then you probably also understand microbiology and down to the cell membranes and things like that. So if you came to a society that was dying from childbirth simply because you did not understand certain things about the womb, certain things about the turning of the baby or being in certain places, you didn't understand about the viruses and bacteria that live in water or in certain plants and things like that, you didn't understand those things, then of course someone coming in who knows how to create antibodies and create vaccines, they would appear to be prolonging your life and curing you of disease. If you came in a time frame where the land was the people were being, a disease, a plague was over the land, but to you it's like, oh, you know what, we handled the bubonic plague like centuries and centuries, like eons ago on my home planet. So boom, all you gotta do is hit that and you're good. I've cured the entire region of the bubonic plague. Then yes, they would consider you a God. They would consider you a God. If you read the Sumerian text, then you'll see that those kind of things happened according to the Sumerian text. They talked about the gods prolonging life. They talked about the gods living a long time. The gods regenerating their own cells, resurrecting themselves and resurrecting others. They talked about the gods curing diseases. They talked about the gods descending and having battles in the heavens and in their flying machines. The Aztecs and the Mayans got little rocket ship dudes, so they talked about all these things. In the Sumerian text, the Mayans, the Aztecs, in the Indus Valley, the Hindu books, they talked about these things. And people considered them gods because they were technologically more advanced than that. So they were considered gods. So in today's world, because they put eliminating debt, that kind of brings it to today's world. But if you take that part out and just look at the rest of it and put it in a time frame to which this description was going on according to these books, then yes, people considered them gods, to which we call them gods today. Whether it's it's Kali or Enlil, Enki, and Harsag and Ishtar, they had many different names for them. The Anunnaki, and then you get El, Yahweh, Jehovah. All of them, they did the exact same thing. The exact same thing. God descending upon the mountain with fire and smoke. you know, and the earth shook. God killing all the children in one night in Israel, boils and all these diseases hitting the Egyptians, you know, during the whole Exodus story. So you had these things going on, you know, put some, you know, blood over your door so that the Holy Ghost won't get confused. I mean, you think God knows, but supposedly knows the heart of every man and the mind of every man. You wouldn't have to put any blood over the door. The Holy Ghost, since that spirit is from God, it should know who's a Hebrew and who ain't. You know, you think that, you know. But because if I was an Egyptian and I saw that, you know, all these other things done happen, you know, I had like all these other plagues going on, and then all of a sudden I noticed all the Hebrews got some lamb blood on their door. Hell, I put some lamb blood on my door because I'm like, dang, they've been throwing down. But of course, there's no Egyptian history of that. That's just only found in the Exodus. So, but anyhow, yes, so they would think you are a god if that was the case. So I think that invalidates his whole statement. And because he put it in today's time, of course, no one would think you're a god because you put it in today's time. Now, I thought that was an interesting one, but the other one was also, the next one is also interesting, as I see it as a connection to to that one, because it has something to do with science and faith. And his next statement, I'm going the wrong way on Facebook. His next statement, he said that scientists think or scientists believe. Sounds like guessing or faith. Scientists think or scientists believe. Sounds like guessing or faith. Far from it. Far from it. You see, a scientific mind does not have thinking or believing or hypothesis based on somebody's just writing something and it hasn't been tested. That is the difference between faith and science. Scientists or a scientific mind believing something or thinking something. Like a scientist can look at let's say you're a botanist and you see that a forest is dying. They may look at the environment and say, I believe it's dying because the water that runs through this forest is being polluted. They believe this because they know that there's a maybe toxic chemical plant 20 miles upstream and it may be dumping it out. So then the botanist goes and it tests the water to see if the water has any toxins or poisons in it that would create such an event. If the water does not have that, then the scientist may say, well, maybe I think some other type of insect or something has been introduced to this environment and it could be creating some kind of pathology within the plant life. So it goes and it tests, it searches and it tests. That's the difference. They'll have a hypothesis based on what they know could create such a situation because it created it in the past, right? You've seen where in science how how polio affected people, how the bubonic plague affected people, how these, you know, we look at these bird flus and things like that, and they say, well, you know, according to the story, the Black Plague swept across Europe because fleas on rats, right? And the fleas bit people and it spread it all over Europe and that sort of thing, okay? But, so it is not crazy for them to see something like swine flu or bird flu and then, or some of these other types of pandemics that can come about because mosquitoes get the virus from some other animals, from some bad swine or some birds or some other animal somewhere else. And then those mosquitoes, when they try to get some human blood, they mix the two and taint the human, and then the pandemic spread. So they can say, I think or I believe it may have spread because of this, but they then go and they have a way of testing it. They test it. The problem with faith is that you can't test it. I can scientifically look at what I said earlier about God descending from the heavens, the sky, based on the words that they use, how they describe the word sky, what words they use, and how it came in fire and smoke and the mountain shook. Faith would just say God just shook the mountain. Science would say that since we already have the ability of flight, and that there are trillions, quadrillions of planets, or at first stars out there that have, and out of that, at least 1% have planets. And out of the 1% that have planets, 1% of those would have planets in the same position as Earth. So out of all that's out there, that would still be billions of planets that could possibly have life similar to ours on this planet. Now, there could be other situations where planets have a different type of life based on where they are and all that kind of stuff. But based on our type of life, there are still billions of planets that would have life on it. Now, if we have flight, other planets may have figured out space flight, may have figured out how to travel through space without burning through the friction of space, may have figured out how to fold space or fly or create like wormholes or all kind of little things, and they've arrived here on this planet. Maybe the Anunnaki is the other planet that has an elliptical orbit, that planet X Nibiru, and they have visited here and they established our cultures and our civilizations. Maybe they did come at a time frame where man was more primitive in his technology. So if that's since we have flight, it is not far-fetched, and since we have life, where based on our positioning from the earth to the sun, then it is not far-fetched, it is not blind faith that says that there could be life and that life could have come here. It is not far-fetched. We have flight. They could have flight. They could have space travel. It is not far-fetched that they could have figured out how to extend life. It is not far-fetched that they could be medically more advanced than we are. So science is not guessing. Science is using that hypothesis is based on our technological advancements that we have had on this planet, and the fact that a lot of the stories that are in these ancient religions basically speak to people of more technologically advanced than we are today coming to Earth, and people of that day thinking they must be gods. This person, think about it, if I was able to live for 1,000 years and I am not just a little bit technologically more advanced, but so far advanced that I'm doing things that you can't even imagine. Like if I was teleporting from here to Spain, if I was able to just create fire out of my hand, you know, and it was all technologically based of understanding the universal laws, you would think that I was a god. And because you lived and died and I'm still here, your son lived and died and I'm still here, your grandson lived and died and I'm still here, their great-grandson lived and died and I'm still here, and I'm still here over all this time, and people have records of me being here for, you know, century after century, then I would have, he is immortal. He is immortal. That's what they said about the Sumerians said that about Anunnaki, because their life expectancy was more of a couple of 100,000 years. So they must be gods, when really it's based on their technology and their physical form. Scientists can look at that writing and based on what we know today, extrapolate that they were aliens or something like that, or just extrapolate that as some made up stuff. But more than likely, it sounds like things that we may be able to accomplish ourselves within the next 10,000 years. So since it's something that we may be able to do, if we went to a planet that was super primitive, they would think that we were gods as well. And if we were of a mindset of conquering, we would easily do that. If they had something that we need, according to the Sumerian story, the Anunnaki needed gold. They needed gold to fix their atmosphere. So what better way to do it than to make the indigenous people do the work, and then to mess with their genome to make them better workers, because you're so superior, you look upon them as animals. In the same way, we use oxen to drive carts. We use horses to ride and move around. We've used animals in our history because we look at them as lower species, and that we can dominate and use them for our benefit. So why wouldn't an alien race that is 1,000,000 times more advanced than we are use us as cattle in the same way? Right? I know it may offend your senses, but why? But they still would. So, but the difference is, what on that comment is the fact that science tests things out. Faith does not. Faith doesn't test. And then people say, well, faith does test because I prayed to God to heal me and then I got healed. But you didn't think anything of the law of cause and effect, that you have a bacteria virus in your system. That bacteria, you produce antibodies, white blood cells to fight off the virus and the bacteria. You went to the hospital, you took medicine, or you are herbalist and you use, natural healing plants to heal your body. You didn't take note of any of those things. You meditated and prayed and saw yourself as being healthy. I'm a healthy man. I'm a healthy man. I'm a healthy man. You change your frequency, your energy, and your cell structure changes based on your thinking. If you think you can, how many times have you seen people or you yourself have thought your way sick, right? You thought your way sick. I've known people who are like, man, every year I get the flu, and I mean, I haven't had a year yet that I haven't gotten the flu, and it's every year I get the flu, and then, you think that, that, you believe that, there is no way that you cannot get the flu, and of course, your cells become weak, your environment becomes weak, and you get the flu. You created the flu in yourself. But I've even seen, we know of the placebo effect, where people demonstrate the symptoms of something because they just have it in their mind, or they get healed because they just have it in their mind. Oh, I'm taking this ain't nothing but saline. This ain't nothing but a sugar tablet. If you've ever been a man and you were with a woman and she got pregnant and you're with her, like, not just like she's pregnant, she live over there, you live over here. I'm talking about like when I was married and my 3 kids, I sympathy pains. I would have sympathy pains, right? This is what they call them. I exhibited some of the same things that she exhibited, both emotionally, energetically, and mentally. And of course, I gained she gained like 30, 40 pounds. I gained about 50, 60 pounds with her. So, you mentally, I wasn't pregnant, but I started exhibiting some of the same symptoms she exhibited because I'm watching her, I'm feeling her, I'm trying to be closer, I'm sharing in this thing. So emotionally, I got into the same state. Physically, I started getting into the same state. She had back pain, I had back pain. It was like all together. Her blood pressure went up with toxemia, my blood pressure went up. I think the stress of her toxemia made my blood pressure go up. But, it was like all these things. Your mind is an incredibly powerful thing. So faith, you can create some mess in your head if you want to. You can create things. You can manifest things. This is why we study the Hermetic laws. Because in his thing, the Hermetic laws are more scientific than they are spiritual, but they have the connection to the spiritual. Simply as above, so below is what connects you to the spiritual. Here's the thing. We know that we know a lot about our physical world, right? Our physical planet we live on, and we can equate things based on our physical planet. And that's all we really know. But we know it, and we know the micro world. We know the mineral world, the elemental plane. We know things on that one, but there is still more that we don't know. We at one point, we thought the molecule was the smallest thing. And then after that, we realized that the electrons and the protons and the neutrons were smaller. But then we realized that there's space in between the protons, neutrons, and electrons. So there's something even smaller that's there. There's dark matter. There's things we're still discovering, still learning about. Because we still have more to know. But what we cannot prove, we can prove those things because they are of our physical world and below. What we cannot prove is the higher world, the higher understanding, the spirit realm, because we don't have an ability to do so. We know that if we speed up something, that it vibrates. It's either going to create heat, or it's going to create movement, speed, or it's going to create become intangible. The more we speed something up based on the law of vibration, and that law shows us tangibility, it shows us heat, it shows us speed. We can do that on the physical plane, we can do that in the elemental plane. What we cannot do it on is the spiritual plane, because we don't exist there yet. When we exist there, then we can do things like that there. So take that into consideration, and I'll do probably another bigger video breaking that stuff down later on, or in other videos. So on second thought, let's discuss that a little bit deeper right now. All right, so one of the differences in Hermetics, and one of the reasons why I study Hermetics, because it is the combination of science plus spirituality. Because it's a spirituality that is backed by science. Even though this gentleman, on his post, he often goes against the conscious community, agnostics, Gnostics, atheist, I do notice that he doesn't say much about Muslims or Jews or Hindus or Buddhists. People have a tendency to accept those religions because they've been around for a long time and they're more established. But that's okay. That's okay. Because here's the thing about the Hermetic laws. All these things come from the Hermetic law. All science comes from the Hermetic laws because alchemy comes from the Hermetics. And from alchemy, you begin to get philosophy and science and chemistry and physics and all these other types of scientific things that that we've evolved into, we've adapted into over the centuries. But they've always been there. And even within your religious writings, you'll find them. So just what I was saying concerning the law of vibration alone. The law of vibration, well, and none of them work alone, but the law of vibration basically is that if you want to increase something, you speed it up. If you want to decrease something along the pole, it slows down. But it is all relative to the pole that it is. So if I increase the molecules of air, then they generally create heat. If you light wood on fire, then you're increasing the molecules of the wood. It's changing, is alchemically changing into something else, and it produces heat, right? Because the molecules, the atoms are speeding up. So as we speed things up, they produce something else, and usually they produce heat. Or if a car, you press the gas, the combustion makes the car go faster. So, and if a car could go fast enough in a loop, then eventually it will become intangible to the eye because it's moving so fast, so rapidly. But if it could move that fast, I mean, it'll burn up before the end, but if it could move that fast. But what we call invisible is really something, molecules speeding up to the point where it becomes invisible to the eye, to our perception. But if it's invisible in our perception, doesn't necessarily mean that it's invisible in the spiritual perception, right? Because it's sped up. Maybe what happens to the consciousness is that when the consciousness leaves this framework, this poverty of the flesh, it's sped up so fast, the molecules, the atoms are moving so fast in the conscious realm that it goes into an invisible spirit realm, right? Or when we look at things that are in the microverse, right? Things in the microverse are so small. They're composed of so less atoms, less molecules put together that they are invisible to our perception. A whistle, depending upon the higher vibration of the whistle, we can't hear it, but a dog can hear it. You know, and then other animals can hear at other levels, different perceptions. So if we have different perceptions of the law of vibration here on Earth, why can't there be, it is plausible scientifically to make a hypothesis, not a faith, but a hypothesis that there are vibrational things occurring on higher planes of existence, since we can see that these higher planes of existence, higher and lower planes of existence are here on Earth. And depending upon what we're talking about, it affects the different planes differently, right? So something simple. Chicken. When I used to eat meat, if you boil chicken with no seasoning in it, just water, take water, put it on a pot, increase the vibration of the water boils. You put chicken in it, that boiling hot water is increasing the vibration of the chicken. As it increases the vibration of the chicken, the natural flavor of the chicken starts to come out, because now the meat is heating up and is moving, and the vibration of the meat is moving fast enough that the natural flavor of the chicken comes out. So in order to put flavor in it, you got to add spices so that the natural flavors of those spices go out, but come out of the spice. But because it's coming out of the spice, it's able to penetrate into the meat of the chicken. And if you surround it with enough flavoring, it will, the more flavoring, more seasoning you put in it, the more it gets into the meat. Now, conversely, let's compare that to boiling grease. Grease is different. It's a different type of material. We know grease, oil sits on top of water. So they're a different consistency. They're different. They're at their natural state. They're at a different vibrational tone, vibrational pattern. So the oil, when it's heated up and the chicken is put into it, although it does vibrate so that the chicken will release its flavor, but the oil is so dense, even in its boiling state, its higher state, that it's pushing the flavor of the oil and whatever else you put in it into the chicken more so than the chicken releasing its flavoring. So that's why fried chicken has more flavor, more of a chicken flavor, more of the natural flavor of chicken than boiled chicken. And it's all just based on vibration and the environment surrounding the vibration, the environment that the vibration is in. So if I put you in a different, you can have a high vibration, but if I put you in one state, in one environment, you're going to get a different result than if I put you in this other environment, right? It's kind of like if Bill Gates was not born in America, Jim Rohn used to say this all the time, that one of the reasons why getting wealthy is easy, one condition, if you were born in America. Being born in America makes it easier for you to become wealthy than if you were born, let's say you was born in the ghettos of Brazil, or if you was born in one of those countries where you can't go to school unless you can afford a uniform, but your parents are super poor. In America, going to school is free for the most part. If you are in America, you can go to school. You don't have to pay. You don't have to have a uniform. There is a school you can go to. But in a lot of countries, you have to pay or you have to have a uniform in order to go to school. And if you don't have the uniform, you can't go. So your ability to become wealthy is easier in America. I'm not saying that other countries don't have it. Many more capitalistic countries, it is easier to become wealthy than if you're in a country that's run by a dictator. Then that country is going to be more difficult. A country that's been shunned by the world and have all kind of economic embargoes like Cuba, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. A country where you have to have the uniform to go to school, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. If you was born in countries where there's a massive amount of people who live in poverty, it's going to be more difficult for you to become wealthy. So your environment makes a huge difference. So you take Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Michael Jordan, any of these people, and you put them in those environments, they're not going to have the same advantages and will definitely not become the same people that they became here in America. So environment makes a big difference on your vibration. That's why the law of polarity talks about the pole. You have to distinguish the pole. So the pole is just not, it's temperature. Hot and cold doesn't exist. It's just temperature. But it also, the pole is the entire environment, right? Go beyond what the Kabbalion says. Go beyond what the Emerald Tablet says about it. But your pole is the entire environment to which the vibration occurs, and every elemental thing that is happening that can affect the vibration and will definitely affect the outcome, right? All those things matter when we talk about the vibration of temperature. Temperature, if there was a flood, and the flood was only as high as Kennesaw Mountain here in Georgia, which is not that high, and you was on a boat and you had all these animals, you can build a fire to keep the animals warm. But if you were on a boat and that boat went 30,000 feet into the atmosphere, that's higher than Mount Everest, that the fact that there is not enough oxygen to build a fire, everything on the boat freezes. Every animal dies, every human dies, because everything dies is frozen. Nobody lives on the top of Mount Everest. Nobody lives on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, because you can't survive at that elevation. And definitely not even for 40 days, not even for 2-3 days, you can't survive. An elephant that has no fur can't survive at that altitude. It can't breathe at that altitude. If you climb Mount Everest, you have to carry oxygen tanks in order to breathe at that altitude. So the vibration of fire, the temperature is frigid, it's cold, it's freezing. You don't have enough air in the environment to create fire. So the temperature is it's different. It's completely different. The vibrational pattern is totally different. To be able to change the vibrational pattern, you need a ton more technology in order to change it. But blind faith just says that, oh, it just happened. They were just able to do it. I don't know how God did it, but God just did it. And they just survived. I can't tell you why. I don't know how. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Because I can't explain it. It's a miracle. But science says I may not be able to explain it, but there's a lot of different rules and universal laws and rules that occur within the universe, just how it works. It ain't got nothing to do with what you like, just how it works. That when applied, I can say this didn't happen or could not have happened, because when I apply these universal laws, that can't happen. When I apply the universal laws, this can happen, or can be, or possibly is. And as we go further, we are able to deduce more by understanding these laws of the universe. This is why I studied the Hermetics, and this is why I will hope you guys would also join me in studying the Hermetics. So I appreciate this time that you guys have spent with me. I appreciate all my patrons. Please become a patron. Subscribe to this channel. I appreciate that. Click on one of these other videos and join me on Tuesday so that you can be part of Tuesday, 9 p.m. Be part of the live talk. Be part of the Facebook, YouTube live talk. Definitely the people on, if you have a suggestion, let me know. My patrons, you get first dibs at suggestions. Patrons get first dibs at suggestions for videos and for live talk. So I appreciate you guys. Please can join us. Mystic Mama's going to be here. We're going to talk about womb wellness, and I want you guys to really get this understanding. Let's not just pray that God gives you fertility. Let's learn how to vibrate in a way and add the medicines that we know that are natural on the planet to do that. Let's just not pray that your cyst goes away, that your endometriosis goes away, that you stop sending, UTIs between the male and the female over and over again because you're not, doing what's necessary in order to get your health in order. Let's do it based on the what we know we can do and the vibrations of things that we know are on this planet, and move you up that polarity scale of health. And the womb goddess is going to help us do that, Mystic Mama. So join us at 9 p.m. So I appreciate all you guys. 9 p.m. on Tuesday. I appreciate all you guys. So remember, and yeah, I'm gonna say it again, watch the videos, because now it's real late and it's done. So watch these videos that we post up here. Enjoy yourself. Have a great day. And remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is not negotiable.